All right. Welcome everybody to Meet the Mentor. Today we have Alysn, Midgelow, Marsden with us, fiber, textile artist, mixed media assemblage from Australia, originally from the UK. I'm Anna Zanella. I'm one of the navigators at Mastrius. I'm a mixed media artist myself. And when I saw Alysn was joining us as a mentor, I got super excited to have her on board. So we'll talk a little bit today about her work. We'll see some images of her studio installations that she's done, and then talk a little bit about the group that's coming up and ideas for the mentorship in the group. Yes, so I'm just gonna quickly read this one paragraph about Alysn, and I'll pass it on to her and she can talk a little bit more about herself. Alysn is an assemblage art, mixed media and textiles artist, and has a regular presence in galleries in Australia and the UK. Her work is regularly featured in printed and online interviews and reviews. She has an international teaching schedule and has authored several books about her techniques. And I've seen you have a workshop coming up in Italy.
No, not in Italy, in France, south
Oh,
of
in
France.
France,
Yeah,
yes.
it's all right. Italy would be lovely too.
Yes, I was looking up and I saw
Yeah.
that. So I thought I'd mention that here that people
Yeah.
can also join you in France. So how about I'll pass it on to you? Like you can tell us a little bit about your practice and how you got started, things you think are relevant that people want to know about you.
Okay. The very first thing I'm going to say is that I'm in New Zealand, not Australia. Now that's kind of, it's kind of like the Canada-US thing, if you say so. um, so yeah, I'm
Right.
based in New
Sorry
Zealand,
about
but I do travel to Australia every year, and I travel to the UK. Yeah, and my teaching practice is wherever it can be, and I'm really excited that this Mastrius gives us the chance to be, hugely international and to get to know artists from like all over the world, so long as our time zones coincide, which, it's really great actually that Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, we can manage this, morning, afternoon time. So that's great.
right. Yes.
So a little bit about me. So I started with a science background, which is not unusual for lots of artists. So, a lot of artists I've come across and talked to have a different background. And sometimes that's where the mentoring becomes really important, because I think you always have this sort of imposter syndrome sitting in the background of your head that says, oh, I wasn't trained as an artist originally, so maybe I can't call myself that, or I don't feel confident in being that person. So hopefully something I can bring to talking to you is that I've got that, I understand that, and I've had to find my own way through that. So that's one thing in the background. So I have, though, been a textile artist, whatever we want to call it, for a long time now, which has been fantastic. And I think for me, textiles keeps giving, because it's a huge range of options that you have. I can use techniques from anything I want to create whatever effects I want. So I'm not limited, which, is just really exciting. There's always new things to learn. There's always new things to put over. And that's also, I think, what I love about teaching, is that I get the chance to really explore things for myself, see how other people take those on board, and then it's a two-way process. We all learn and we all explore things. So yeah, where am I now? I have a studio here in a beautiful part of New Zealand called Tawharanui, which is just north of Auckland. I did say that when I moved from the UK, I wanted somewhere that was warmer. The summers were better, and I wanted to be near the sea. So I got my wishes.
You got it all.
Yeah, much as I love going back to visit the winters and the autumns, it's great to be here at other times, and certainly to be near the sea, which goes back to my marine biology, biochemistry sort of training. So to be fully immersed in that and my art practice is heaven, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How can I ask, how did you do that transition from marine biology to being an
To
artist?
textiles. I was kind of a classic, loved doing art at school, did my art exams early.
Mhm.
Because you could, it was like, well, you're okay at that, you can go and just do it, teach yourself and get on with it. But then was told, get a proper job, get a
Right.
proper training,
Yes.
which, is absolutely classic. So I did, loved that, but decided a career in sciences was not really the way I wanted to go. It didn't fit with my life at the time. And I decided to go back to textiles and art, which is something I'd done alongside that all the time.
Yeah.
And as part of that journey, I sort of outgrew where I was working, sort of kitchen table, basically.
Mhm.
Found a venue where I could have a studio, but it was so big that it would have been rude not to ask other artists to come and join in.
Yeah.
It was an old Jacobean barn, so sort of 1600s barn,
Mhm.
which had outbuildings and three levels. So it became a gallery, it became an art center, it had art studios, we had workshops, we had a cafe. So it became this whole big thing for 13 years, which was fantastic. The people that I met, the artists whose work I handled was great. I learned a huge amount about how to be an artist and how to run a gallery space, and this kind of tension between being the artist and doing the business side of being an artist.
Right.
So I really feel quite confident that I can inhabit both of those spaces. They just take different bits of your brain, and that's really good. And again, that's something hopefully I can pass on to people and help them to understand both sides of that. So I ran the gallery, and then my husband, he grew up in Australia and he'd always wanted to get back south. And we, again, point in our life that was just the perfect timing between children's exams, various parental responsibilities, job responsibilities, all worked out. We said, let's go for it. Let's not be there. What if we'd moved and what would have happened? Let's go and see. So we did. And that was like 12 years ago now.
Wow. Yeah.
Here we are.
That's great. I love that. Yes, I agree. Lots of people, lots of artists have a previous life. And then how lots of the things you learned before get incorporated into your art as well and into your business and so on. But yeah, that's awesome. So now you have a beautiful studio in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Could could we share a video?
Yeah, oh, please do, please.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
So we called it Kotare Studio because that's the Maori name for the native kingfishers, which are just beautiful. They're not shy like English kingfishers. They sit around, they come and see you. Beautiful birds, and we see lots of them here. As you can see, it's a standard metal barn that I just said, right, we're here. I can see the sea. I've got this big working space. We're moving here. This is great. So that's where we start.
It is very slow.
We can play. Is it not wanting to play?
No. Let me go back and see if it will play.
There we go. So there's the inside. It's looking very set up just there because we've just had an open studio. So it's about the tidiest, and a little board of ideas, one of my sewing machines. That was my indulgence. See me sewing away on that. Another little machine that I use called an embellisher, which makes felted surfaces. That's its needles. Also wire, metals, lots of burning tools and heating tools there. Some jewelry tools so that I can flatten my wires and extend those, which become things like that, sort of sculptures which have this lovely flattened wire. Yeah, so I kind of use an awful lot of different media and different tools. My next project is to learn to weld and to properly learn how to make videos. Like with Premiere, because they're all part of the practice and they're all part of the excitement. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there we are.
Let me unshare.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like it was going to be the biggest studio I could have, and it was great. And I feel now I'm kind of almost hemmed in with it. I think the bigger your space is, the bigger your pieces become, the more you make.
That's right.
And
the more
I need more
materials
space.
you use and the more things you have. Absolutely. I also had, worked on the table. Now I have a studio. I have a small studio, but you always feel like after a while you're like, oh, maybe, yeah, I could use a bigger studio. So
yeah, your house gets filled with. Yeah, I will kind of warn people, if you take up textiles or mixed media, every single house in the room, every single outbuilding will be either filled with part-made pieces, storage of pieces, materials that you're going to use, because you start collecting, I know, every bit of fabric and thread and every bit of paper and every bit of shell or driftwood or things you find on the road. I don't know.
yeah,
Slightly obsessive.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So do you want to tell us about the big project installation that you had going on, and then we can take a look at some of the images from that as well?
That would be great, thank you. Because one of the things that I find as an artist is that there's different sides to it. And every now and again, I take the opportunity to do something maybe that's bigger or different in some way, rather than continuing down my own sort of private work. I want to do something that teaches me something new, takes me to a different space. Some artists do that maybe by taking up residencies, which are a great way of learning and a great way of pushing yourself. And this opportunity came up for me, having talked to a couple of other artists. There is a space in the middle of Auckland which was going to be demolished. And then for some reason, the council decided, no, we will make this whole wharf area right in the middle of Auckland, down at the wharf, with all these super yachts and amazing ships around you. So right in the sort of commercial heart of 6 huge old concrete silos. So built of concrete, but also the idea was that they brought the concrete powder into big hoppers in silos, like grain silos. And then that was put on a train in little train carriages and carted off around the rest of New Zealand for building projects. So instead of knocking these down, they are now an arts and events space. Still very raw, still very much as that sort of post-industrial silo space. Yeah. Anyway, so we had the chance to do something here, and you cannot take on a space like that without doing something different. They're huge. They are, I don't know how, 20 stories high in building terms. I don't know. And I had the opportunity to use 2 of those spaces to try and do something that I hadn't done before, or to push with ideas that I'd had that, you just don't get a chance to do. A standard gallery wouldn't give you that kind of installation, participatory chance in that space. So yeah, I did 2 pieces. One was called Inertia and the second was called Choice. And they kind of are in that order because I've been working, having been a marine biologist, a lot of my work recently has been thinking about the situation with the environment and the situation with plastics in the ocean, plastics in our bodies and animals' bodies, and the possibility, you know, if we're going to be kind of apocalyptic about it, that maybe humans aren't going to be around. So this kind of post-human space where there are leftovers from our society, but not necessarily us, something else, something else discovering the kind of remains of our society. And also this kind of idea that our studios, you know, bring it back to us now, have, you know, you'll have this, you have a box or you have things under your tables that are part finished pieces, that are development works, that are kind of, if I excavate under my studio, same as if some alien excavator was looking down at the remains of the humans, that we have this history of our work. So I created in the first piece, which we'll show the video in a moment, a space where there was almost like the inside of a core sample with the remains of my studio and the remains of existence. And it was being played along with a flashlight, which worked around the space. So it played around as if you were like a CSI person with their little flashlights and they were walking in the space. And that just moved around and highlighted some of the pieces as it went around. So if you could play the video, this one's called Inertia. And imagine yourself in a silo made of concrete, something like 8 meters in diameter. So it was about 20 meters circumference. And hopefully it will play. Yeah, so choose Inertia. There we go. Even the video, it was a mixture of light on the water, which was sort of a more hopeful sign, and a video that I took in Australia, actually, of some curtains, an abandoned shed that just had these curtains blowing in the wind, these old kind of broken net curtains. So that, imagine that as a space. It was about maybe 1 meter high, there's 20 meters round, and this video which literally just played around and focused your attention with that sort of flashlight of video right through. Okay, I think we got the impression of that one. Thank you.
And do you want to show the next one, or do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, let me just talk you through it a tiny bit, and then we will have a look at the next one. So the next one was called Choice. So we have Inertia if nothing happens. This is maybe what happens if we don't make choices. And the second one was called Choice. Again, we're thinking of geological cores, and I created over 100 3.5 meter long plastic cores, which had, again, leavings off the beach, lots of bits and pieces that you pick up off the beach, the kind of plastic that washes up, and the string from boats and fishermen that just is part of your sort of the experience of walking along the beach and picking up all those bits of plastic. And they were all incorporated into these soft plastics that are waste. I went to the local DIY store and I started asking them if they got packaging that they could donate to me as an art project. And they, yeah, okay, this is a bit weird, but yeah, we'll give you what we've got. Yeah, that's kind of strange. And then one day I went along and it happened that I suppose the floor manager was there, and he said, you know what, we forgot to recycle our soft plastics yesterday, so we have got a day's worth left. Do you want to take it all in one go instead of keeping coming back? I said, let's have a look. Yep. And honestly, there I filled a big car with soft plastic, and this was less than 1 day's worth of plastic from one DIY store. And now, fortunately, in New Zealand, and I hopefully around the world, there are now ways that we're using these soft plastics. They're becoming fence posts and decking, and they're becoming used in housing construction. So when I'm done with it, it can all go back and it can all be reused and made into some more permanent plastic, seeing as it's here anyway. That's kind of a whole issue. But I wanted these pieces to be made of plastic. So they're like these big, long core samples. But because it's about choice, as you walk through it, a completely immersive environment, you have to push your way through. You have to get lost. You have to find your path through these huge core samples. And there also, it reacts to UV light. Well, I created UV threads and you've got a UV paint. And so that as you move around, when you stand still, it all goes quiet and dark, and you'll see that in the video. And then as you move, the UV picks up on this. So you choose, as you move, you choose to make your own space, or you choose to be quiet. And some have got sounds, so that as you move again, you knock against them, and that you choose to make the noises. And it made this, you know, it was actually a lovely environment, and it was great to see people go in. I think there was only one person was too scared because it was dark. She didn't go in. But kids could run around, and it was like a kind of playground, and it was fun, but it was also quite meditative and thoughtful, hopefully, that you could go in there and you could think about the choices maybe that you were making, whether it was life choices, environmental choices. People came out talking about looking like lace wedding dresses, making them think about choice in any way they wanted it to be. So I think it was a really successful install. So let's have a look at the video. And I won't talk because it's just about letting it happen. Thank you. Thank you for playing that.
Fascinating. So can I ask you some questions about the installation?
Please do.
So there's the noise that we hear is from like things on the floor or from the pieces there?
From things hanging inside the pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. So that you could, as you kind of started off, I mean, obviously projects change as you think of them. And I was imagining to start with some kind of, I've forgotten the name of them, those little desk toys where one knocks against another and then bounces out and knocks against another.
Right.
It's just gone from me for a moment. And I was thinking of them doing that against each other, then decided to make that just the whole thing. So it was about it was about both physically moving through the space and also things inside it, which you don't expect because you can't tell they're there. And then suddenly it makes a noise and you go, oh, is it supposed to do that? Am I supposed to? Am I allowed to? How do I respond to that?
Yeah. Very cool. I guess. Yeah, it creates that sense for people, right? To think about like, oh, this one makes a noise. Do all of them make noises? Oh, what's the noise of this one? And kind of creates that curiosity. And so the pieces are all plastic, made out of plastic.
Yeah.
And then you said that you had, so I saw like the thread, that glow in the dark kind of stuff. So you treated some of the pieces to glow more than others.
Yeah, so that they picked up, I had UV lights around that were on sensors. So as you walk past them, the UV light played, which then brought the UV reactive threads and the paint. And then when you stand still, like your night lights when you go past your houses and you have the sensors, same kind of thing. So that if you stand still, they go off, and if you move around, then they come on, and they would then catch the installation. Yeah.
So it's also the audience or the viewer interacting.
Absolutely, yes.
Being interactive with the piece. Okay, cool. So I have never done any installations. I've seen lots of different things. How long did it take you?
Oh, okay, so if I work back from the actual exhibition or installation, took us 3 days to do the install, including to drive scissor lifts and things like that, which was quite fun. And every install that I've done comes with different challenges. So, some are technical challenges, some are physical challenges. There's always something fun and unexpected, and what's the phrase? The unknown unknowns that come to bite you just as you think you've got everything sorted. And then the actual making was of choice took maybe 6 weeks, almost every day. And most of that was physically ironing plastic. I got calluses on my hand from ironing plastic.
Yeah.
Open it up, put several layers together, and then start fusing them with the heat of the iron to create. So it was more than just really thin, soft plastic, so that they were structurally sound, and I could stitch on them and paint into them, and get them created. The other piece, the inertia, was that's harder to say because I was talking about that being like an excavation from the studio. So it was lots of pieces that have been part created or were pieces, as well as the Pompeii-like body forms that were again heat fused over a kind of. Initially, I thought I might do it over a person. Then I realized that heating plastic over a person isn't a good plan. Going to do them any good. So I made a wire mesh body that I could leverage all of the plastic over. So that's long. It was a much there were things that would have taken me, if I'd have made it from scratch, it would have taken me months and months. But because I was literally excavating months and months or years of work from inside the studio, in a way, the physical putting that together didn't take too long. Yeah.
So, and then, so what I find interesting, so like there's, in creating a piece of art like that, you have all these different processes or parts of, to achieve it. So like you found all the materials, then you build all these pieces, but they're huge. So, were you able to put them, like set them up before you were actually in the space, or when you got to the space, oh, now let's figure out how this is going to work?
Oh, kind of a bit of both. To some extent, a lot of it was, standing in the space lots of times before, as you were developing the pieces, maybe taking smaller sections of it into the space to be able to envisage it. You don't always get that chance with installations. Sometimes it really is, I think this is going to work and I've got to make it work.
Right.
Which might involve other choices as you go along.
Yeah.
You know, you might end up making choices you didn't expect, sometimes for the better, hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
And because you're in touch with what you want the work to say, I think there are ways of adjusting what you're doing sometimes to make that work. In this case, the plastics are very lightweight. You can fold them up and they can be quite small. If I have one of these, this is one of my core samples. So it folds up really, really small. Right. So I've got 120 of those sitting in boxes in the studio right now, ready for some other installation. But actually, because they and then they can open up into the core. Look at those lovely textures. I just love the way the light captures the textures on the plastic. It's kind of like this guilty pleasure that plastic can be so amazing as well as so awful. So those will, they will have another life, hopefully. And most things, I'm actually really happy when it comes to installation work to deinstall it, to take it back into component parts, and then maybe it becomes something else. You know, part of doing an installation, in a way like a residency, is that you get to a certain stage and you say, this has said one story, now I'm ready for it to say another story, or to take it on, because ideas, you know, they're flowing through, you're in touch with the materials and your ideas, and that's that journey. We do it, you'll do it with your own work. You know, one piece leads to another, or an idea that wasn't right for that piece becomes something else later. And it all is like encyclopedia of ideas and thoughts in your head. And
so there's actually several parts, right, to that. Like, because there is also, I mean, when the when the piece is there installed, well, then there is, in this case, you know, like people going in and experiencing it and maybe sharing with you some of the things that you were talking about. And so there's like the creation, there's the installation, there's the show in itself, and all that comes out of the interactions, right? And then, like, if you think, okay, well, now this show is done, so taking it down and rethinking maybe the pieces.
And one of the great things about this particular installation was that I was able to be with it pretty much all of the time, which meant that you really did get that interaction. I could allow people to talk to me about what they wanted to see in it or had come across. I didn't want to have too much directed information,
right?
Because what comes back then is much more interesting, what people have felt for themselves, you know. And such a, you know, there is an adage about the artist is only half of the process, and actually it's you as the interactor or the viewer or participant. You know, you're as important as the artist that put it together to start with, and your ideas and your experiences coming into that. And that's what I get out of being a teacher and a mentor as well, is that it's this two-way thing. It's a circular process. You're growing, you're learning along with the people that you're involved with. So installations like that, they're a lot of work. You can't do them all the time necessarily, but every now and again it's really, really great to grow your practice that way and to find out new ideas for yourself and let other people take that experience away, which is, you know, a lovely thing to sort of push out into the world.
Very cool. So you also told me that as you were there during the exhibition, you created a few pieces, right? So do you care about that?
Oh, the installation was one big thing, but also you don't want to be sitting just kind of staring at people as they walk in. Isn't there anything worse than having someone
Right.
look at you as you go to a gallery space or an installation space or a performance, and kind of staring over your shoulder as you're trying to, you know, be quiet with some work. So I like to have something to do. And in this case, I took some prints of some seaweed photographs that I'd taken and stitched them both on my sewing machine and hand stitch and using the embellisher. And you've got a few pictures there. So just much smaller pieces, which are much more collage, assemblage based.
Give me a
One or
second.
two of
I
those.
can share them.
They're still kind of looking into my fascination with the sea and with the way things wash up on the seashore and just get sort of abandoned and dumped, but then are beautiful for that. Part of that experience of
Right, let me share my screen and we can take a look at them. We have two of them here side by side.
Yeah, just little pieces. They're only maybe, what would you say, 15 to 20 no more than 20 centimeters, which is like 6 to 8 inches in any direction. But can you see the sort of machine stitching and the embellishing, lots of handmade cords and some beautiful, you know, semi-precious chips and beads and other shells that I found on the beach and other pieces. So yeah.
Wow.
Nice to do. And they're saying that I like to do greetings cards as well, which are again small scale collage, which allow you just to enjoy the materials and how they come together. You know,
they're very pretty. Yeah, here's the one with the
there's
shell.
one with some shells. Yeah, so I just drilled little holes in the tops of the shells so that I could stitch them on with a bead.
Right.
And for some reason, I burn a lot of things. So if you look at the edges, not so much on the one with the shells, but on a lot of the other ones, they have got little burnt edges as well. I think I learned to burn things when I was both doing science and I worked in a textile lab as a holiday job for a while. And you always have to burn textiles to see what they are. It's the very first thing you learn to do. So I think that's kind of carried on. I burn a lot of things. My metals I burn, or heat treat to change the color. The metal cloths I use, I heat treat. So it's kind of, there's always a flame going on or a hot tool somewhere.
That's great. I love they're very beautiful pieces for sure. So should we talk about a little bit about, you know, mentorship and how do we envision this group going with you and so on?
That would be great. Yeah.
All right. So I can talk a little bit about how the rhythm of the mentorship goes. So mentorship is different than teaching because lots of times it's driven by what people want to learn or things the mentor is going to identify that the artists also need. Because sometimes you need things, but you don't know, right? You want to go in, you know the direction you want to go, but you're not sure how you're going to get there. And so maybe there's gaps in there that you know, the mentor will be able to help the artists with. So usually the groups in Mastrius will have one mentor and 8 mentees and one navigator. So the navigator is the person who does the interactions between the mentors and the members and kind of it's kind of like the glue in between the members as well. So what we have on a monthly basis, we'll have one session with Alysn and we'll explore different ideas. Learnings, we'll have homework perhaps from a month to another month. We can bring it back and discuss, you know, talk about how things were created or how we were able to explore and the challenges and all of that. Kind of everybody has time to share a little bit. Then 2 weeks later, we do what we call a mid-month meeting, and that is usually you have your navigator and the members of the group without the mentors. And that's to keep the momentum going for people, right? So like you have things you're working with and you don't know where to go. There you have your peers to talk about it and to show and ask for opinions. And or maybe 2 weeks passed since the meeting and you've been thinking about all these things, but you haven't started, which happens many times. And so that's a way to get that momentum going for you. Oh, okay, now I remember what it was, and we'll get to work and so on. So like it's really, so we do, what you were talking about a little bit, Alysn, that teaching and mentorship is like that information and the learning is not only one way, but it's in all different ways, right?
In 8 or 9, 10 ways, even if we've got a full group. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Which is so important, because when you're teaching particularly sort of short courses, which I tend to, I might go off and have a group of 15 or 20 people, but we're only together for 5 days or a day sometimes. We can only start those processes, and it's really exciting that within this mentorship and the extended time that you get, that you have chance as a participant to try things out, to then come back and talk about those. And it's about your own work and development. It's not just here's how we do a particular technique, which it might be if you need to learn that technique, and we can sit in front of my machine or with our blow torches or whatever techniques that we can introduce. But it's about developing your ideas and your skills, and whether that's how to mount things ready for a gallery or how to prepare portfolios, or there'll be, I'm assuming people will be at different stages, but at each stage you can get something new out of those discussions.
Yeah. And
with that mid-month meeting helps you, I'm sure, is incredibly valuable. It sounds like a really great way to not have the pressure of having finished something to show me or to talk to me about, but to have that group discussion about how you're feeling and sparks of creativity and inspiration.
Right.
Those things that have happened.
And then you always learn something from someone else, right? That are in the same stage. That might be a little bit here and there, but they're all emerging artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of techniques, or in terms of the business, in terms of all sorts.
Sort of exploring your concepts and themes, which, and I think the concepts, themes, the understanding of where you want to be as an artist, how you want to do that, all kind of join together. And that's hopefully what the mentoring will be able to pick out those things that are right for you or right for the group at the time. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
And also, so like some of these ideas, right? Like generation of ideas, of projects, of things, of techniques maybe people want to learn about, or sometimes we might have a demo or show and tell about different pieces and how they were constructed and made.
Because there's always something, again, my learning from face-to-face teaching is you take a whole stack of samples, all of which show something that you want to show, and you can guarantee that somebody will pick up on something else that you're not really talking about in that particular workshop, but that they get really inspired by. Right. And that takes you off down a whole nother tangent, which is great, and it's great that then, so you might say, okay, we're going to explore this in the workshop, or this is our starting point with the mentoring, but the discussion and the growth and the paths we take will be much more interesting than we could plan if we planned it like a university course where we have to achieve A to Z in so many sessions.
Yes.
much more exciting than
And
that
all
kind of
these
stuff.
topics that need to be talked about in this
Yeah.
order. Like I
Yes.
guess with the mentorship, like with mentorship, we can, as participants in a group, kind of decide on what
Yeah,
is.
what are the key, at least the starting points, and then things are led by those discussions. Yeah, which I think is, it's got to be much more fulfilling and much more relevant. I think most of the people that I teach generally, and I'm sure that come to the mentoring, are at a stage where they've got a lot of ideas for themselves, and it's more about just getting those into play and bringing them forward, and maybe increasing confidence, whether that's technically or conceptually, or how to do your pricing, or how to stretch a canvas. You know, it could be practical, like you say, it could be practical things, it could be conceptual things, but they all come into play into your personal artistic development. That's
So we are scheduled to start March 22nd.
yeah,
That's my time. Okay.
yeah,
So
21st in New Zealand time.
We need to do this in two parts. So
Yeah.
North American time, starting date March 22nd, and it is at from 3 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time, which is the same as 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. When you actually go on Mastrius' website, you will see it in your own time zone. So Australian time, New Zealand time, starting date is March 23rd, and
21st.
New Zealand time.
Yeah, we're on the 21st. Yeah. We're a day ahead of you.
Right.
So Thursday, for me, it's Thursday the 21st at 10 o'clock New Zealand time.
Okay.
Yeah. And Australian time is, oh, that's such a, go on the website, because if I'm on the Melbourne, Sydney end, then that's only 2 or 3 hours different. And if I go across to Perth, Western Australia, I'm probably 6 hours different.
Yeah. So the best way to find out about this is if you go to mastrius.com, our website, and look for a menu that says mentorship, and choose the item on the menu that says choose your mentor. Then you can search by name. You find Alysn's page, and towards the middle, there is a little box that will show the date and time, and it shows on your own time zone, which, yeah, it can be really complicated if you're doing this Australia and New Zealand and North America and Europe. So yeah, I'm excited about this group. I think there's lots of things to be talked about and learned and shared. I hope we'll have some people that are interested in joining Alysn in this new in this path of mentorship, to learn more and improve as artists, and I guess generate a bunch of new questions to ask about where you're going, right?
And new connections, isn't it? Because, you know, that group that you form through the mentoring will give you so many new networks and connections, and the excitement that brings of having a worldwide tribe.
Yes.
You know, whether you're a textile person or a painter or a sculptor, it probably doesn't, you know, that's not the most important thing about choosing your mentor. It's more about the approach, I think, that they take. So yeah, hopefully you love my approach, and if you like that approach, come and try us out. You know, join the group. It will be great. And Anna's going to do all that lovely back end technical stuff.
Right.
I have to. I can concentrate on being with you, not not having to worry about screen sharing and
Absolutely.
doing chats. So it's a great setup. I love that. I love it. It's been thought out really well. I think the Mastrius system is comprehensive, thoughtful, approachable, and easy to use. So yeah,
It's very
great.
cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, even in this 40-50 minutes that we've been talking, I already took lots of notes. So there's lots in there. Thank you, Alysn, for taking the time to meeting and chatting. And yeah, well, I'm definitely looking forward for the starting date of the group and looking forward to see more people.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.